Good morning. I'm Jeremy Anderson, President of the Education Commission of the States, and it is truly an honor to have all of you here with us today in Denver. On behalf of the Governor of Montana, Steve Bullock, our chair, and on behalf of the Governor of Nevada, our outgoing chair, Governor Brian Sandoval, I'm excited to have all of you here as the Arts Education Partnership and as a part of the Education Commission of the States. We have a very diverse group of leaders here from across the country, representing more than 30-plus states, and we even have representatives from the Korean arts, culture, and education. We are really excited to have you here for multiple days of conversations around the importance of many arts and education policies that are taking place in the states. And I can tell you on behalf of our entire team, which is based here in Denver, we are excited to have you here in Denver. A couple of important mile-high things you need to remember. Drink a lot of water. If you don't have chapstick, buy some because you're going to need it by tomorrow. And I don't say that to question your own health habits. I'm just saying it is normal at any of the conventions we have here in Denver. So if you drink a glass a day, try 3 or 4 while you're here in Denver. Our busy schedule is going to continue to move through a host of different issues that we have really focused around policy, practice, and research. And I want to start by thanking the Arts Education Partnership Advisory Committee, which has been instrumental in this transition and transitioning AEP from the Council of Chief State School Officers, where it had been housed for 20 years, to the Education Commission of the States. Our advisory committee has been meeting with us multiple times this year, and in many cases on individual meetings with both me and with Dr. Jane Bess, our director. And it's been helpful so that we can figure out what's been working, how do we do things differently, and what are you as our partners looking for. The success of this event and the success of AEP would not be possible also without the continued support from the National Endowment for the Arts and the U.S. Department of Education. I want to talk a little bit about some of the plenary slides we have, all of which came from ideas from many of you on things you wanted to make sure you learned more about. We have a plenary today that's going to be talking about the art of civic spaces and creative partnerships. We have a great discussion this lunch hour with Austin Kleon on arts, creativity, and the importance of education. He's going to be talking about his 2 New York Times bestseller books. Tomorrow we're going to have a tremendous panel that's going to be talking about the Every Student Succeeds Act. What are the opportunities for arts in education? And for those of you who didn't notice, we released a paper this morning on this that the AEP team and the AEP ESSA working group put together, which is about the inclusion of arts in ESSA. And finally, we're going to close with an esteemed speaker. Paula Kerger is the president and CEO of PBS and has really been leading that organization at a time when they have truly transformed how they're incorporating arts into their programming. She is going to provide insight into the leadership in the 21st century and the role of the arts in shaping education in America. As we look at some of the breakouts that we have, I want to take a quick minute to thank the AEP National Forum Selection Committee. Many of you serve on that. This was a really, really robust year as far as applications for breakout and concurrent sessions. I think we had more than 50 of them, and we don't have nearly that many slots. We worked with some people to merge them with other organizations, and unfortunately not all of them were accepted. But this committee went through some very serious review to make sure that we've got some of the best and brightest ideas and best practices for you in the breakout sessions. A couple that we want to highlight, there's one on arts integration, research on effective practices. There's going to be one that's about the President's Committee on the Arts and Humanities joining with the Kennedy Center to transform America's schools. We have one on weaving voices together, the power of inclusive leadership. We have one on educator evaluation, making sense of the assessment and education reform for music educators here in the state of Colorado. And another one I want to highlight is From Vision to Reality, the 2014 National Core Arts Standards 2 years in. Where do we stand? We are looking forward to an action-packed agenda over the next 2 days with each of you, and we're excited to have you here today for the 2016 Arts Education Partnership National Forum. It's now my esteemed honor to introduce a video introduction from a good friend of the Education Commission of the States and a great supporter of the Arts Education Partnership. I'm excited to have U.S. Secretary of Education, Secretary John King, with opening comments for our event.
Hi, I'm John King, U.S. Secretary of Education. You are all leaders in arts education, but your role is actually much larger. You are also visionaries, widening students' horizons so that they graduate ready to succeed in college and beyond, in careers. Our nation's new education law, the Every Student Succeeds Act, represents an opportunity to elevate the importance of a well-rounded education that includes all of the arts. We often hear people call for focusing on the basics, by which they mean reading, writing, and arithmetic. But today's basics must include music and all the arts, along with world languages, science, social studies, civics, geography and government, physical education and health, coding and computer science. Studying all of these disciplines helps students make connections between their studies, their curiosities, and their passions, and that helps them become sophisticated thinkers. We've seen the benefits of students learning in and through the arts in the Turnaround Arts program of the President's Committee on the Arts and the Humanities. In some of the nation's most challenged schools, this federally supported initiative demonstrates the importance of arts education as well as the power of the arts to transform the learning environment and reach high expectations across a well-rounded curriculum. And as you well know, in arts-rich schools, understanding the many forms of artistic expression help us appreciate human diversity and more fully understand ourselves, both of which are essential to success in school and life. I encourage each of you to continue being the voice for arts education, especially as we implement the new law. The arts should not be an afterthought. They should be central to what it means to be educated. I look forward to working with you to help students unlock their true potential, and I commend you on the visionary 2020 action agenda that guides your discussions at this forum. As a student, I benefited from arts in the classroom. Some of you may know that I made my stage debut in 4th grade as the Rose in the garden in Alice in Wonderland. I also had the opportunity to go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art and to the ballet. From both my time as a student and as an educator, I know that educating students in their passions can be life-changing. So I can personally attest to the power of President Obama's quote on the front of your agenda, "The future belongs to young people with an education and the imagination to create." Let's continue making that future a reality for all of America's children. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of the forum.
We're excited to have the support of Secretary King and to also have representatives from the U.S. Department of Education with us. I want to now introduce Doug Herbert, who's going to come up. Doug is actually the supervisor of the arts education programs at the U.S. Department of Education, but for us involved with AEP, he's much more than that. Doug has been a central theme and a leading light for many of the arts education programs across the country. He has worked not only for the National Endowment of the Arts, working with AEP, but also with the U.S. Department of Education with AEP. And with his more than 20 years of committed service, he would not want me to mention years, but I like to do that to him occasionally. With his more than 20 years of committed service to this program, it's an honor to be able to partner with him through this last year and look forward to partnering with him for many more years to come. Please join me in welcoming Doug to the stage.
Well, good morning. So you know you've stayed at a place too long when your official photographs and the hair in your official photograph no longer matches your real hair. So I think I need to schedule an appointment in the photo studio. So I'm so pleased to be here. As I listened to Secretary King's remarks and Tim telling us about the tremendous promise the new Every Student Succeeds Act holds for all students to know themselves, their society, and in fact the world more fully through the arts, I'm reminded of similar words, and this is my historian role, I think. I'm reminded of similar words of promise from former Secretary Richard Riley in 1995. Remember those days? Few of you do. The occasion was the launch of a bold, new, and innovative initiative born out of a promise within the Goals 2000 Educate America Act. 21 years ago, the Goals 2000 Arts Education Partnership was created by Secretary Riley and Arts Endowment Chairman Jane Alexander to seize the historic opportunity of the arts being included in the first ever, at that time, national education goals. Specifically, the arts were among 8 core academic subjects that comprised Goal 3, which called for all students to demonstrate competency in all the core subjects, including the arts, and to use their minds well. In the years since 1995, the Goals 2000 label fell away as the 1995 Educate America Act made way for new versions of the 1965 Elementary and Secondary Education Act. And as those new versions came along, the coalition of more than 100 national arts and education stakeholders that was formed in 1995 rose to each of the challenges given by the federal agencies back in that starting year. The three challenges were to promote and disseminate research to inform policy decisions about the role of the arts in schools. Secondly, to encourage and practice collaboration and collective action. And third, to address inequities between the haves and the have-nots where the arts are concerned in schools. The Arts Opportunity Gap, as former Secretary Arne Duncan reminded us in 2012, is both an equity and a civil rights issue. Thanks to all of you, the partner organizations you represent, the leadership you bring to this forum, the Arts Education Partnership will meet the new challenge that the ESSA Act offers us. The challenge is specifically to help state and local decision makers understand and, more importantly, act on the reasons why the arts are part of a well-rounded education, which is at the heart of the new law. And on behalf of the Department of Education, I want to thank the Education Commission of the States, and special thanks to Jeremy Anderson for his vision and leadership that has brought AEP's national office to Denver. I believe that things happen for the right time, in the right times for the right reasons, and this move of AEP to ECS as educational decision-making shifts to the states could not have been better timed. Collectively, we all have the vision, the action agenda, the partners, and accompanied by the strength of our longstanding collaborations, the burgeoning evidence base, and most importantly, the passion to make the arts part of the education of every student in America. So let's get to work.
Thank you so much, Doug. I want to start actually with an interesting quote for this next introduction. The Education Commission of the States was actually formed 50 years ago, and Governor Terry Sanford, the governor of South Carolina, at the very first ECS National Forum said, "The commission must stir up trouble and make the body politic itch. It must be unafraid. It must be the blueprint of an architect. It must be responsive to all good ideas, and it must take the problems, assemble the best people, and seek the answers, whatever they may be." This quote from Terry Sanford is actually etched in glass and on our walls in the ECS office. And it talks a lot about what we do as an organization, but I think it speaks a lot as to why we're excited to have the Arts Education Partnership as one of the centers within our organization. At ECS, we have commissioners across the country. We are in statute in all 50 states. That's rare to have an organization that actually got the same bill passed in 50 states. In today's world, I think it's impossible. In every state, we have 7 commissioners. Our commissioners are almost always the governor, the chief state school officer, the university president, the state board chair, the chair of the House Education Committee on Education, the chair of the Senate Education Committee, and one at large. Those 7 players, while not always communicating together, when they do, can move mountains in education policy. And it's what we do for states every single day. We do it on dual enrollment issues and early learning and on college transfers and on what's happening with 3rd grade reading levels. But now we also do it in a much more strategic way on arts education and partnerships. Last year alone, we produced more than 50 national education policy papers across the P20 spectrum. And we're excited to already have 4 out that are related with ESSA and related with arts education. Last year, we answered over 650 private policy emails, questions from governors, chiefs, legislators, where they don't know what the answer is, and so they contact us, and we provide them with a private memo that outlines exactly what the options are, comparing what they're considering to what other states have already done, so that they don't have to recreate the policy wheel, but can learn from each other. Almost 2 years ago, I started to review where the Education Commission of the States needed to grow to truly better serve the people, the policymakers that we have as our members. And I knew that we had to think creatively in that capacity, because what I was seeing was a lot of questions coming in from policymakers around issues like civic education, around issues like STEM, around issues like arts education. And it was pretty fortuitous because not far after that, we were notified that there was actually going to be a program solicitation from the National Endowment for the Arts, and they were looking for a new home for the Arts Education Partnership, and I truly believe that this was a perfect fit. While it was a competitive process, and we worked with multiple partners, some even in this room, on a proposal, we were very excited to find out almost exactly a year ago that we're the new home for the Arts Education Partnership, and hopefully the new home for a long term so that we can support the work you're doing in the states that we serve. Under a year ago, I was elated to be notified that AEP was in fact going to be the new home, and I knew that we were going to have to be very busy, because through the process of our application, I'd had a lot of conversations with an amazing individual who many of you have worked with over the years, Sandra Rupert. And I knew that she was going to be stepping down, wanted a little bit more relaxed time, although she's in our office a lot lately. She's been very helpful on this national forum, but wanted to be stepping down, having a little bit more relaxed lifestyle, and that I would need to find a new director. And so I started to work immediately looking for how we could find the best director to lead AEP into the future. We put together a top-notch national search committee and hired a consultant who helped us with multiple different leads. On this search committee, Pam Breaux from the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, Gail Conley with the National Association of Elementary School Principals, Doug Herbert from the U.S. Department of Education, Terry Peterson from the After School Alliance and an advisor to the Mott Foundation, Ayanna Hudson with the National Endowment for the Arts, Anna Tilton with Grant Makers for Education, and myself. We met multiple times in DC, and we met here in Denver as we interviewed many quality candidates. And we were excited because when we found the candidate who we thought best fit what we needed, it didn't come from the same mold that we assumed it would. I think we had an assumption that it would easily be coming from one of you, from your members, or from even your staff, someone who'd been engaged with AEP. But instead, I think we found someone who had the leadership and the vision who could really move AEP to a new level. Someone who had a lot of education experience, someone who has had some arts education experience, but someone who has been across the country in previous jobs working with elected officials on how to actually educate them on meaningful policy. It is my honor to introduce Dr. Jane Best. Dr. Best is an Indiana native who received her bachelor's degree in communications and marketing with a minor in art from Indiana University. She received her master's degree from the Ohio State University. It's football season, so I'm required to say that, I think. And her doctorate in education on leadership and policy studies from Vanderbilt. Over the past 6 months that Jane has been in this job, she has been traveling the country almost as much as I have. She has been in meetings in New York, Washington, D.C., New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Indiana, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Texas, Colorado, and Connecticut. And many of those meetings were with many of you in the room today. As a former high school French teacher and also a policy analyst for the Tennessee Higher Education Commission, Jane has worked directly with teachers and policymakers in multiple capacities across the entire P20 spectrum. With experience managing and working with national programs for the National Conference of State Legislators and the regional labs for the U.S. Department of Education, Jane brought the talents that we thought were necessary to become the third director in the 21-year history of the Arts Education Partnership. I, along with the entire AEP Search Committee, are excited to have her taking on this new role and truly honored to have her leading the way for arts to be a success for all students across our country. It is my pleasure to introduce to you the Master of Ceremonies for the 2016 AEP National Forum, the new director of AEP, Dr. Jane Best.
Good morning, everyone. Everyone looks so bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. That's the beauty of having a meeting in Denver. You East Coast people are particularly on top of your game. So thanks for that kind introduction, Jeremy. I can't tell you how truly honored I am to be here. And I'm kind of moved by what he has to say, because you do realize you spend your whole life working like a dog, and it's like you hear these wonderful things before it's your actual eulogy, right? So I want to tell you that I'm super excited to be here to join you in advancing the mission of exposing all children to the power of arts and their education experience. So if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I'd like to spend the next 10 minutes telling you a little bit about myself and then talking about what the last 6 months have been. And then I'd like to talk to you about what we'd like to do going forward. So first I want to just say, thanks again for coming. We couldn't be more excited to have you here in Denver. I know that when you look at my biography or you hear all the things Jeremy says, connecting the dots to how I got here is not readily apparent. But what you don't know about me is I'm the person in this room that has long envied folks like you. You were the people who realized your childhood dreams very young and turned it into gainful employment. Whereas I'm somebody that I've spent my whole life having opportunities take me in a different direction, but I always came back to wishing I could spend my time the way you all do and earn a living at doing the things that really bring you joy. And I sense that in this room, and that has been the power of my experience the last 6 months. So let me explain how my career path led to AEP. I will say that it's deeply rooted in the community where I was raised. So many of you know from my visiting you in your offices, I grew up in a tiny little map dot called Elkhart, Indiana. And no one has ever heard of Elkhart, Indiana until I get around many of you who are musicians. Because what I need to say about it is the home of it used to be, I should say, the home of over 60 musical instrument manufacturers. So with that in mind, I was a fortunate recipient. I was very lucky to be a child of a culture where it was just part of the thread of the culture. The music industry brought with it a strong commitment to the arts, and it permeated in its schools and in its community. It was not unusual for famous musicians to hold pop-up concerts on plazas because they wanted to test drive new instruments that they were consulting on. And it really wasn't unusual for famous musicians, like, for example, Doc Severinsen from the Tonight Show Band, to show up in our schools and give us lectures on how creativity and discipline could be translated into other life skills in the arts. Now I look out across the room and I see a lot of people on their cell phones that are millennials that are Googling who the heck Doc Severinsen is. So I will say, I want you to think pre-Jimmy Fallon and the Roots Band. I want you to think pre- Jay Leno and Kevin Eubanks, and go back to the days of Johnny Carson. So this is back in the 80s, and I'm aging myself a bit, and I will say I was a little girl at the time, okay? So once I got to college and I was surrounded by other people, I realized, like any naive teen, I had very much taken for granted the idyllic youth that I had. So from there, I just am going to fast forward through all the stuff that Jeremy graciously mentioned. I had a career as a teacher in French and English. I had a terrific experience getting a doctorate in education policy where I realized a second passion for the politics of education. And then I spent over 10 years in government relations for large education research and policy. And I found myself one day in front of my computer, and an email came in from a childhood friend. And the subject line was quite evocative. It simply read, "Thinking of you, this job is the perfect blend of your artsy ways and the boatload of time and energy you spent on your education." Okay? So the email was, of course, for this job. And I knew enough about Education Commission of the States, but I candidly admit I did not know enough about Arts Education Partnership. So I started doing my homework, and I did a lot of homework on all of you. And David Dick, I know things about you. And Mario, I know things about you. Didn't you wonder why I said, what was it like growing up in Pennsylvania as soon as I met you? And by the way, Jeff Poulin, happy birthday yesterday. So I say that because anybody in this room who went to school for a long time can identify, when you go to school long enough, you kind of become an expert Googler, which to some audiences translates to a little bit of a minor league stalker, right? So all kidding aside, I will say this. I knew Jeremy enough to exchange pleasantries. I was extremely impressed that Education Commission of the States was an organization that was on the rise, I observed it as an organization that was on the cutting edge of what education stakeholders cared about. I knew that they were great at preparing stakeholders for what they should be worried about. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in the hunt for the job. So I'll say this, I can tell you I have never been more motivated to succeed in a job than I am for you all right now as the head of the Arts Education Partnership. I feel like I'm the last one in on the great big secret of the fantastic jobs that you all have. And I just couldn't be more grateful to be a part of it. So in talking with Jeremy, I'm going to tell you this also. And I visited with the search team, and I visited with the staff at the Education Commission of the States. This is my assessment 6 months on the job. He's the real deal. The organization lives up to its buzz. And not only do I have a fabulous AEP team working with me, alongside of me, but I also have this amazing infrastructure of education experts spanning the content issues of education, just offices away from my own. So with that, the planets aligned, ESSA passed, and I inherited the position and the wonderful 2020 action agenda that many of you are so familiar with. So I want to make sure I take a minute and pause and congratulate and appreciate Sandra Rupert for the amazing foresight she and many of the partners in this room had when crafting that blueprint for action agenda for the Arts Education Partnership, because I couldn't be more grateful to step into a position with such good positioning to go forward. And everyone's excited about it. We have done a refresh of it and changed it very little, but trying to move it to action. So lastly, as I make my way through this time in the last 6 months, I want to mention 2 trips I've taken. The first was early on in my tenure. 3 days into my job, I got a call from the Connecticut governor's office. And the governor's wife, the First Lady of Connecticut, Kathy Malloy, is also the chair of the Greater Hartford Arts Council. And she was leading up a big initiative and summer program called the Neighborhood Studios. Neighborhood Studios has been around for 18 years. It's an apprenticeship program where they allow kids to go in and experience multiple capacities of the arts during hands-on internship. And she needed me to come to a fundraiser that would support these kids. And while there, I had an amazing experience. The community is obviously one that deeply cares about making sure kids get exposure to the arts, but they also embedded people who were alumni and recipients of the great services of the Neighborhood Studios program. So while there, a young woman named Gina Salvatore also spoke on the program. And she passionately spoke about the childhood that she had, and she had 2 working parents, and summers were often very lonely and rough for her. And she mentioned that many years ago, she joined the Neighborhood Studios program, not because she thought she had any predisposition or skills or talents in the arts, but simply just to have something to do in the summers. And as a consequence of that experience, she wrote her college essay to get into the University of Connecticut based on that experience, graduated with honors, and secured employment as a stage manager for breakdancing Shakespeare, and has now built a career as a consequence of that meaningful program. Second, I want to mention an experience I had just a few weeks ago, and that was in Grand Rapids, where many of you were. That was at the National Assembly of State Arts Agencies, and I was asked to conduct a breakout session on ESSA. And Susan, I know Pam Bro could not be here today, but I hope you will tell her and all your NASA colleagues how amazing I thought that conference was. I know there were some other people in the ESSA session, Ann Brown, Charlotte, I saw you somewhere in the room. Pam Paulson was there. And I just want to mention how struck I was by the amount of energy in those ESSA sessions. People are very anxious and excited and wanting to optimize and take advantage of that law. So what my big takeaways were, and I want to make sure I say this to you in the most productive way possible. I want you to really ask yourself what success looks like as you respond to ESSA in your schools and communities. Because right now is a really critical time, and in those sessions, People were looking for template language and learning from other states and all these things that we completely understand that you need. I know that exemplars are not coming fast enough. I know the language is not coming at the ready. But just as No Child Left Behind was in our lives for a very, very long time, ESSA is not going to be a fleeting loss. So it's up to us, all of us in this room, to come together, decide what success looks like, and make sure it's maximized and played out the best it can in our own states, districts, and communities. So, for those of you who I met in Grand Rapids or other events along the way, I hope we can use this conference as an opportunity to visit with one another and see how things are going. Coming as somebody from the outside into this community, I've never met such a passionate group of people. But I encourage you to get out of your silo and let's tell each other's stories, because I think we need to cast our net further. I think we need to get more champions for education. I think we need to bring more people into the fold, because what our work is truly meaningful. This conference is an excellent venue to explore best practices related to research, policy, and practice, but now we need to dig in and think about how best to operationalize that. Lastly, I want to say one thing. We're super excited to have you all here in Denver. We're very pleased and proud of the program and your attendance and being here. And we know everything's new, and we couldn't be more excited about it. So it's time for us to look at the 2020 action agenda that the Arts Education Partnership has put forward and give serious thought to how we can raise student achievement and success, strengthen educator effectiveness for school leaders, transform teaching and learning, and build leadership capacity. Because these issues are at the forefront of our opportunities within ESSA. Title I for disadvantaged students, Title II, professional development, Title IV, 21st century learning communities. We have great opportunities, and additionally also to integrate arts into STEM and other capacity areas. So let's work together, let's span boundaries, let's work with unusual suspects as well as the usual ones to ensure that every child in this room and beyond this room gets the same advantages that have brought us together with the same value system. So thank you, and I look forward to a great conference. And with that, I would like to transfer over to our next speaker. Our next speaker we're so honored to have. First Lady of Denver, Mary Louise Lee, has graciously agreed to join us, and she's a champion for the arts in her own right. She's no stranger to any of the arts and Denver venues, such as the ones you took advantage of last night at the Opera House. And Mrs. Lee has performed internationally as both an actress and a vocalist. We're really lucky to have her here, so please join me in welcoming this wonderful ambassador to the arts.
If you believe within your heart, you know that no one can change the path that you must go. Believe there's a reason to be. Believe you can make time stand still. And know from the moment you try, if you believe, then you will be there. Believe in yourself right from the start. Believe in the magic that's inside of your heart. Believe all these things, not because I told you to, no, but believe in yourself. If you believe in yourself, just believe in yourself as I believe in you. Good morning, good morning. Welcome to Denver. I am so excited to be here, a part of this wonderful event. Welcome you all to the city, and I apologize for the weather, but it is going to be nice. We always say here in Denver that if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So, and that is very true. It's supposed to, the rest of the week's supposed to be pretty good. Now, now that's my forecast. But I want to welcome you on behalf of the City and County of Denver and my husband, Mayor Michael B. Hancock. We welcome you. We welcome you to Denver, and we want you to enjoy our wonderful city and our state, for that matter. It's a lot here and a lot going on here. So I am just supposed to give some remarks about who I am and what I do. Well, I am a performer. I've been a performer since the age of 3, and professionally I started as an actress in a stage musical here in Denver at the Denver Center Performing Arts when I was a senior in high school. And I've toured all over the country as well as internationally, performed for the Department of Defense, for the troops. I've had a wonderful performing career thus far. And I happen to be the First Lady. So I say to everyone, the mayor is married to me. So as First Lady, I started a foundation called Bringing Back the Arts. And that information is on your table. And I want you to take it with you and look at it and just see what we're doing here in Denver. I'm a product of the Denver Public Schools, so I know the importance of arts, always have. You know, like I said, I started at 3, so I know exactly what music, dance, drama, band, visual arts can do for a person. We all know that it works both sides of the brain. It helps us to be well-rounded. We know that. And that's the point that we have to get out to everybody else. Because as I tell youth and everyone around this wonderful city and state of ours, that if you are an architect, or if you are a surgeon, or an attorney, or even a construction worker, you have to know how to think out of the box. Well, how do you do that? Because you got to have that creative side too. And like I always tell, I have a lot of artsy-fartsy friends because I'm an artsy-fartsy person. And so that's what's so important to me. I started Bringing Back the Arts about 5 years ago. My husband asked me when he won for mayor, he said, "What would your platform be as First Lady?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? You've got to be kidding." And he said, okay, let me ask another way. He said, "Would you want to initiate more into the arts? I mean, just really bring it up." I said, "Of course." So I started a foundation about 4 years ago called Bringing Back the Arts. What does it do? We make sure that we restore our arts education programs in the Denver schools. We provide access to our cultural institutions, and we make sure that we promote our local artists. So with that, we have 3 competitions. We have a music competition that is held at our wonderful theater. Bluebird Theater is a historical theater here in Denver, and it is sponsored by AEG. We have a visual competition that is on our historical Santa Fe Art Walk. Now, all these places that I'm telling you, I need y'all to go to and visit. And then we have a dance showcase. We also have an internship program that is available for juniors and seniors in high school. And it provides arts internships in arts organizations. So we are very excited about it. And it also gives them school credit and teaches them about the ins and outs of a career in the performing arts or in the visual arts. It gives them an idea of what can happen. It also gives them, ideas that you don't have to do it. But just like I said earlier, you don't have to go into a career of the arts, but you have the appreciation of it, and it helps you to be a well-rounded person. So I'm very excited about what we are doing here in Denver. It is an exciting time, and with that, I'm still performing. I actually open at the end of this month down at the Denver Center. Matter of fact, not down, it's just right across the street. I will be playing Billie Holiday in Lady Day at Emerson's Bar and Grill. I did this performance about 14 years ago, and I'm doing it again. So I'm reviving this production, and I'm very, very excited about it. So I keep my schedule pretty busy, but I wanted to make sure that I stopped by, said my welcomes, said I'm so excited for you all to be here, and thank you so much for the work that you all do all over the country. Thank you all for having me. And now, okay, so anyway, I'm going to do a tap dance. Wait a second, no, I'm not. Although, wait, let me just tell one story. Since I've got some time, I am a performer, so. No, I will say, okay, let me say this real quick. As a performer, we go through all different types of things. So about 4 years ago, on the 29th of September, I went to an audition. And, I always tell people that I'm a singer-actress who moves well. Well, this was the part, I got the call back. Okay, I did the singing and the acting part, and then it was time for the dance part. I said, well, I'm not a dancer, so I'll just do the best I can. And I'm moving, I'm getting into it, and I hear a pop. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. And then kick my leg up, leg comes down, I hear another pop. But then it hurt. So I get off stage, I'm like, okay, something's not right. I didn't say anything to anybody, I said, something's not right. So I got in my car, drove home. I told my husband, something's not right. I think I did something. He said, you're just getting old. That's all that is, So I said, no. He said, well, just take an Epsom salt bath. That's what you need to do. I did that. That next morning, I was in the emergency room. I had dislocated my hip and then broke it. It relocated and broke the back part of my hip. So here I am today telling you that just like I tell all the youth, you just don't stop. You keep going. I went back for another call back on crutches. And they said, oh my gosh, what happened? I said, you don't want to know. But just to say, I just wanted to make sure that I put that story out there to let you know that a true performer, if you all don't know him, a true performer will go to the ends of the earth and back and keep doing it because we love what we do. And it's a passion. So thank you all for what you do. And again, welcome to Denver.